Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Saturday class with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurбhavасваha Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodaya. अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्वी नावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. Please open your books on chapter 2, verse number 18. And we started this verse last week when we ended our class. So let me just read the Sanskrit and the English translation and go a little bit more into the detail of this verse. Prakasha, kriya, sthiti, shilan, bhooten, driyatmakan, bhogapavargartham, drishyam. So the objective world means, hey, whatever we see outside, including our body, mind, that's all objective. So the objective world is made of elements and senses. Illumination, action, and stability are its inherent qualities. The objective world furnishes consciousness with the means of achieving fulfillment and freedom. So with this sutra, Patanjali clearly tells us why this objective world exists, what it is made up of, what its intrinsic qualities are and attributes are, and why we are here. Everything is given in this verse. So the purpose of the objective world is to provide an environment where consciousness can experience its infinite joy and boundless freedom. Bhogapavargartham drishyam. Very clearly he's saying. So there are 3 points. So let's break down this verse into 3 points to understand it. The first point is the world and worldly objects have a twofold purpose: enjoyment and freedom. Another point he is making, the world is made up of 5 elements and 11 senses. 11 senses means there's a mind in there too. 5 plus 5 plus 1, 11. And third point is making, the illumination, activity, and stability are intrinsic attributes of this world. So the first point, it really shatters the notion that enjoyment and spirituality are opposed to each other. That the enjoyment and freedom are opposed to each other. That freedom from pain and misery can be found apart from this world. Remember, the world and life in this world are intrinsically neither good nor bad. It's our own understanding makes them good or bad. Same situation, for one person it's good, the other person it's bad. So we give the color to it. You remember in the verse number 15 of this chapter, Patanjali acknowledges the presence of pain in life. Then in Sutra 16, he told us how we can avoid the pain. How can we conquer and eliminate the pain? And in Sutra 17, he described why pain and misery are inevitable for a complacent person, not for a yogi. And in verse 18, he tells us that for a vigilant and self-motivated person, this world is not at all painful. This is a field of enjoyment because this world is full of choices. We find what we seek. To those interested in pleasure, the world and worldly objects are pleasant. To those interested in enlightenment, the world and worldly objects are enlightening. So this world has everything we need to find fulfillment and freedom. Everything is here. We got to learn how to tap into the infinite bounty of this world. We have to understand what this world is made up of and how we fit into it. That's why the second point is very important to understand. Where he says this world is made up of 5 elements and the senses. Because through the senses we perceive the elements. For us, it's very easy to understand that 5 elements constitute our natural world. Earth, fire, water, air, space. Those are the 5 elements. And it's also very easy for us to understand that sentient beings, like animals, insects, bacteria, they are all integral part of our natural world. But in order to understand that our senses and mind are also part of the material world, it takes a little deeper understanding. Because normally we see this world as made up of 2 parts. The world outside and ourselves. That's why a sincere introspection is needed so that we can see 2 distinct categories of reality. Energy, matter, they are like a one part, and consciousness. The body, mind, senses are derived from and remain part of the energy and matter, which is, in the Vedic terminology, it's called Prakriti. But our core being is made up of consciousness known as the Purush. So one is a Purush, the other one is Prakriti. But what happens is, this consciousness, this Purush, we start to identify with the body, mind, and senses so completely that we forget that there is a separation. Really, completely forget it. So this strong identification forces consciousness to believe that it is the body and mind. Once this belief matures, consciousness finds no reason to examine whether or not its identification with the body is valid. Especially when we see other people are also identifying with the body, we think it's okay, it's natural. And in the light of this firm belief, consciousness has no choice but to depend on the external world for its fulfillment as well as freedom. It's like an outwardly oriented personality. It's also called a bahirmukhi, where we become dependent on the material possessions and we think we will be free after we consume everything. And that never happens. And that's why we resort to the external world in the search of fulfillment also. That's why we work so hard to obtain power, possessions, recognition. And when we get disappointed in these pursuits, we continue to look for a solution, even harder than before in the external world. We think maybe not here, maybe not in this situation, maybe not with this object or with this person, maybe somewhere else. We keep on hopping from situations to situations, objects to objects. It never occurs to us that the solution to our suffering can be found right here in our body, in our mind, through our senses. This way of thinking destroys the very foundation of our inner healing and empowerment. Patanjali is telling us that to enjoy fulfillment and attain freedom here and now, we must acknowledge the fact that our body and senses are an integral part of the natural world. That means it's part of the Prakriti. It's not who we are. Nature has given us a gift. This beautiful body, mind, senses, so that we can feel fulfilled and we can become free right here. If we look at it properly. That's why as part of our yoga sadhana, we must remind ourselves that life in this world has a purpose. The body, mind, and everything in the world around us are equipped with everything we need to fulfill that purpose. It is up to us whether we live purposefully or we die in vain. And the third point Patanjali is making in this sutra, how the subjective world offers choices of what we experience and how to experience it. He talks about the illumination, activity, and stability. We have the choice because these are the inherent qualities of the objective world. We know that this Prakriti is made up of three forces, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So everything evolving from Prakriti is inherently imbued with these three qualities. At the very practical level, Sattva means uplifting thoughts, interest in cultivating higher virtues, motivation for achieving higher goals. That's a sattva. That's why he called it illumination. Rajas means to be active, to undergo change. And tamas means the inclination for discouraging and saddening thoughts. The inclination towards slath, inertia, laziness, the qualities of darkness, heaviness. So every single object, as well as the building blocks of our body, mind, senses, have these qualities. Nothing in the world is totally enlightening, uplifting, active, inert, radiant, or dark. So that means it's a mixture of all these three. Every object contains the seeds of pleasure and pain. See, pain is part of the tamsikta. Pleasure is a part of sattvikta. When we become enlightened, so freedom from the pain. Every object has the potential to be a source of bondage and liberation. So in other words, our body, mind, and senses contain both all the causes and all the cures for every form of pain and misery. Nature keeps on changing. That's why they say the ever-changing nature of things constantly brings and takes away both the fortunes and misfortunes. If we are vigilant, if we are self-motivated, we can recognize this. We can embrace what is good, what is auspicious, and discard what is not. And the ability to distinguish the good and the bad, useful from the useless, is called what? Vivek, the power of discrimination. A person who has the power of discrimination enjoys this objective world, bhog, and at the same time remains free from what he enjoys. That is apavarga. Okay? So the power of discrimination is a function of the decisive faculty of our mind, known as buddhi. Buddhi. But remember that just like everything else, buddhi is derived from and made up of prakriti. So that means those three forces are part of it. The greater the dominance of sattva in our buddhi, the more vibrant and illuminating this faculty is. The more tamas dominates, the duller and darker this buddhi becomes. So that's why we got to cultivate a radiant and active power of discrimination, vivek. It is important that we support and promote the sattvic force of our mind. We'll see that in verse number 28 of this chapter, Patanjali is stating there the purpose of yoga sadhana is to illuminate the mind to the point where its power of discrimination is fully matured, unobstructed, unfailing, and revealing. That's why we do yoga sadhana. So this is verse number 18. So remember 3 points. If you remember it like that or try to dissect it, these big verses, difficult looking verses, they become very simple. Because all of you have studied Bhagavad Gita also. All of this is in great detail mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Always remember Bhagavad Gita and Yog Sutras. They go hand in hand. Every student of yoga should deeply study these two scriptures. Only then we can just walk on this path properly. And next sutra describes how nature's three forces, sattva, rajas, and tamas, interact with each other. And how the objective world comes into this process. Vishesh, avishesh, linggamatralinggani, gun parvani. Vishesh is a perceptible objective world, Vishesh, like a distinguishable Vishesh, or you can say identifiable. Vishesh is the opposite of that, non-identifiable, non-distinguishable, or something which is scarcely comprehensible. Lingamatra, only referable. That means something which can be referred to, but not precisely pinpointed. Lingamatra. So something which points to absolutely unmanifest existence. And a lingamatra, that which is beyond all reference. Something which cannot be indicated by any sign of existence. So unmanifest state of Prakriti, that is a lingamatra. And gun parvani, it's a gun plus parva. Gun is the quality, attributes, characteristics. Parva means nodes. No, it's like a fields of the gunas. Sattva, rajas, tamas, gun parvani. Okay. So the nodes of the gunas are fourfold. What are these four? Vishesh, avishesh, lingamatra, alingamatra. So the nodes of the gunas are fourfold: the identifiable, the non-identifiable, the only referable, and that which is beyond all reference. So he's talking about the Prakriti over here. He explains the entire range of creation in this verse. The most subtle and imperceptible aspects, as well as the totally unmanifest primordial cause of creation. In Sankhya philosophy, there is a term which is called Satkaryavad. So that means the pre-existent effect, Satkaryavad. So this theory states that the effect, karya, already exists in the material cause, which is Sat. So that means there's nothing new is brought into existence. Nothing new. We don't see it because it's so subtle, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. So that's why these four big words he has used over here, just to explain that. See, when he says a linga, beyond all reference, that is the Prakriti in its primordial nature. There's no fluctuation. It's unmanifest. We cannot even feel it. We don't even know it. That doesn't mean it's not there. That's a ling. So beyond all reference, little bit grosser than that is lingamatra. That means only referable. You see the ling there. You see a little reference over there. And in yogic terminology, it's called mahat or the buddhi. So the first one is prakriti. So a ling is prakriti. Ling matra is mahat, buddhi. You can call it a field of intelligence, awareness. You just become aware of it. It dawns. A ling matra. Then a little bit grosser than that is a vishesh, non-identifiable. What is part of that? Ahankar, which is called asmita also, I amness. 5 tan matras, those are subtle elements, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. So these are all avishesh. So you see the difference, a ling, then avishesh. And then when it becomes a vishesh, we are more familiar with it. There is a mind. 5 Gyanendriya, hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, smelling. 5 Karamendriya, verbalizing, grasping, moving, reproducing, eliminating. And then 5 bhoots, the elements: earth, water, fire, air, space. This is what he's talking about in this verse. Everything about the Prakriti broken down from the grossest to the subtlest. So Vishesh, Avishesh, Ling Matra, Aling, and Gun Parav. 5 words over here in this verse. So remember, the cause is itself transformed into an effect. So Rishi Patanjali is explaining the entire process of evolution from the unmanifest all the way to the concrete manifestation. Also, the practical application of this knowledge is part of our spiritual quest. This verse alone, a whole book can be written. But we'll go through it little bit more detail and then we'll move on. Because I'm sure you are serious students, you can understand it with fewer words also. So let's look at Vishesh. Vishesh word we often use for special, particular, exceptional. That's a Vishesh. So it refers to those 16 evolutes of nature. 5 gross elements, 5 senses of action, 5 senses of cognition, and the mind. Altogether 16 evolutes. Because why they are Vishesh? Because they have a distinct character and function. That's why Vishesh. Eyes are Vishesh. They can only see. Ears are Vishesh. They can only hear. But together they constitute our phenomenal world and create a locus for the individual soul. They really serve as a field for enjoyment, fulfillment, and also upwork. freedom. So these 16 evolutes manifest from much more subtle and relatively unmanifest sources. I amness, asmita, and 5 subtle elements. It is important to remember that these 16 evolutes existed in their causes even before manifestation. In other words, they were always there in their unmanifest form. They don't just go away. Lord Krishna also mentioned that with the soul, all of this goes. Just like the fragrance of the flower moves away with the air. He gives that analogy in Bhagavad Gita. So the threefold forces of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are intrinsic to the cause of these 16 evolutes. After these evolutes manifest, they contain these 3 forces. So the 5 great elements, which constitute our body, mind, senses, as well as the body of the phenomenal world, there is an interplay of these 3 forces, Sattvikta, Rajasikta, and Tamsikta. The world around us, our body functions, our sensory experiences, our mental activities, they are all subject to the changes that occur due to these play of these 3. We are sitting down, very calm, just with something. Sometimes it's not even from the external world. It could be right within us. A thought can change our mood. Nothing happened in the outer world, because the inner world, there's a play of these 3 going on constantly. But a diligent person, a sadhak, seeks and finds fulfillment and freedom in the vast universe of his own body, mind. On the other hand, a careless person remains a prisoner of his body and mind. That is the purpose of Rishi Patanjali putting these deep verses in this book. So Vishesha and Avishesha. And I told you earlier that Avishesha refers to the 6 evolutes of primordial nature. So that's Avishesha. That's why very hard for us to put our finger on the I amness. That's a Avishesha, Ahankar. Or even the 5 subtle elements: sound, touch, form, taste, smell. So these 6 non-identifiable evolutes are the cause of the 16 identifiable evolutes. So that means the Avishesh is the cause for the Vishesh. Because the subtler the thing, more pervasive it is. So these 6 Avishesh are extremely subtle. As I said earlier, that existence of I am cannot be denied. I am. We know it, we feel it, and yet we cannot pinpoint what it is, where it is. Similarly, we know the sound, touch, form, taste, smell exist, yet we are unable to know or feel them apart from the process of hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, smelling. So subtler it is, harder we can put our finger on it. That's why Rishi Patanjali called it a Vishesh. non-identifiable, non-distinguishable. But still at the same time, they are sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So those are called the intrinsic attribute, has been passed on to them. Our experiences, the experience of this world, get influenced by them. There are times when we do not find the cause of our joy or even a grief in the familiar domain of our body, mind, senses. But we are still totally in the grip of these feelings. We cannot shake it off. There are times when our mood swings beyond our conscious control. So according to this sutra, the cause of these uncontrollable feelings lie in the domain of this group of 6 evolutes, which are Vishesha. This is where the subtle and potent causes of our entire range of feelings are stored. And the interplay of these forces, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, they are working constantly. We know that sattvic force awakens a joyful feeling. Rajasic force awakens feelings of agitation, restlessness. And the tamasic force awakens the feeling of sorrow, hopelessness. A vigilant person tries to gain access to this domain and attain the mastery over the causes as well as the conditions that trigger these causes. And that person finds the lasting fulfillment and freedom while living in this world. It's not after we leave this body. Because after we leave this body, this Vishesha is going to go with us. We got to work on it while we are here. The sadhana we do while we are in this beautiful human body. And this subtle and unidentifiable domain has itself evolved from a much more subtle cause, known as linggamatralinggani, according to Rishi Patanjali. The literal meaning of lingamatra is that which can only be referred to but not precisely pinpointed. And this lingamatra really means buddhi. Loosely we can translate it as intelligence or intellect. In Yog Sutras, buddhi refers to the state of evolution where primordial nature first comes into contact with the Purusha, consciousness. There's a commingling going on. So buddhi is the first evolute of Prakriti. Buddhi. Here Purusha and Prakriti share each other's domain. Purusha shares his intelligence with Prakriti. And Prakriti shares her limitless potential for manifesting the world with Purusha. This is the wedding he talks about, Purusha and Prakriti. In other words, Purusha's intelligence is transferred into Prakriti and Prakriti's potentials are placed at the disposal of Purusha. This is what happens. Both Purusha and Prakriti are beginningless, both of them. And also endless, all-pervading, unmanifest. So it's like a commingling of these two. And they understand each other's intention. Nature comes to know that consciousness wishes to descend into her field. And consciousness comes to know that nature is ready to receive. This understanding gives birth to buddhi. That means a field of intelligence. Field of awareness also is called. So this field is infused with the infinite potentials of both Purusha and Prakriti. Again, Purusha's intrinsic potential is knowledge, and Prakriti's intrinsic potentials are the forces of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So Purusha as the seer knows who he is seeing, and Prakriti knows who is seeing her. So that's how seer and seen are fully aware of each other. In other words, the field of buddhi is filled with wisdom pertaining to the mystery and domains of both Purush and Prakriti. Buddhi precisely knows what to experience and how to experience it. The intents, the purposes. This field of buddhi is as great and vast as Purush and Prakriti themselves. That's why the another term for buddhi is mahat, the great, the vast. Patanjali calls buddhi mahat linggamatralinggani. This is the term he has given in this verse. Lingamatra, that which is just a sign indicating the existence of that which lies beyond all reference. Another reason why this great field of understanding is called Lingamatra is that all of our experiences pertaining to the objective world ultimately dissolve into this field. So that's why the term linga. Literally, it means where everything ultimately dissolves. Ling. And matra means only, just the essence. We don't see everything else. We just only see the essence, the subtle form. So at the end of the creation, this buddhi, the mahat, the vast field of understanding is reabsorbed into the unmanifest prakriti. It's called lingamatra. And beyond this lingamatra is the fourth node of gunna, known as a ling. That it is beyond all reference. See, ling is still, there is some kind of a reference. A ling is beyond reference, which cannot be indicated by any sign of existence. In this context, a ling refers to the unmanifest state of primordial matter and energy known as Prakriti. So you see, Prakriti, the buddhi. So ling, a ling, ling. Then comes a vishesha, and then after that comes Visheshavishesha. So the inherent properties of Prakriti are the forces of light, activity, inertia, sattva, rajas, tamas. For all practical purposes, buddhi is a state of reality that is the only existence. That's why it's always called Satmatra. The world germinates in buddhi and dissolves back into buddhi. So Prakriti, like pure Purush, remains uninvolved and unmanifest. Then who is involved and who is manifest? It is the union of the Purush and Prakriti emerging as the field of Buddhi that is involved in its own manifestation, in its own maintenance, in its own reabsorption also. And how the ordinary soul residing in the field of Buddhi experiences itself and experiences the objective world, we'll learn it in the next sutra. What really happens? See, in this verse, he just created a beautiful picture for us about the Prakriti. Then he will go into the clear perception. Drashta, drishyamatra, shuddho api pratyaha anupashyaha. That is verse number 20. Because if there is a beautiful scene, who is really seeing that scene? We need to know that also. So far he described only the Prakriti, broken it down into 4 categories so that we can understand it properly. So that we can enjoy also, and at the same time we can liberate from it, not drown into it. That is the purpose. Let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming.